Fabulous. So this session is all geared towards CeMAP 1. So for you guys who have never come across CeMAP 1 before, or you're really early on in your CeMAP journey, the first thing to say is you do not need to sit your CeMAP 1 exam first. And this is a really common question that people ask, and they say, Charlotte, I've heard that CeMAP 1 is the hardest. Is that true? It depends on you is the answer to that question. And I found with my students, it's about a 50-50 split. So 50% of my students will say, yes, CeMAP 1 was the bane of their existence. They hated it and they would never like to revisit it, but that's only 50%. The other 50% actually think that CeMAP 2 or CeMAP 3 was harder. So if your question is it the hardest exam and should I sit it first? I can't tell you if it is the hardest exam, but what I can tell you is that you don't need to sit it first. Leon, hello, welcome to the chat. I'm just going to ask if you wouldn't mind. Oh, don't worry, I figured it out. Panic over. So you don't need to sit your CeMAP 1 exam first. And if you are at a stage where you're thinking about doing CeMAP, but you've not quite booked your exam yet, if you don't know how to do that, the simple answer is go to the London Institute of Banking and Finance's website. That is where you all should be booking your exams. So whether you use a learning provider or not, you should be booking your exams through there unless your learning provider specifically says, I have got your exams in hand. And the way that it will work is you'll go to their website, they will ask you to register an account, and then they will ask you to pay a registration fee or an exam fee. So for CeMAP 1, it's about £220. I think as of now, it might be £223. You have to pay that fee first, but you do not have to book the exam at that particular point. So you will pay your fee, and that essentially gives you 12 months to sit your exam. So from the date that you make that payment, you then have 12 months to sit the exam, and you will sit it either in a test center or you can sit it remote, which I'll come on to in a second. But anybody that is in this chat, please do not buy a second-hand textbook online because there's loads for sale on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, a lot of Facebook chats, people are offering to sell their textbooks. You will get a copy of that textbook when you pay for the exam. So what will happen is you'll pay your 223 quid fee, you'll make the account with the London Institute of Banking and Finance, and then they will send you a chunky textbook in the post. And it looks a little something like, oh my God, I've got loads of them. They look like, and I've lost my camera. This is great. Hang on. There we go. They look like this. So there's two of them that you'll get. They're huge. They're fairly boring. You can use them as doorstops if you want to. That's what most people do. But that is what you are given to study for your CeMAP exam. And the idea is they go, here's your textbook. Congratulations and good luck. May the odds be ever in your favor. And that's the support that you are given. Now, at that point, you are absolutely welcome to go and look at alternative study products. I am one provider. There are a few other providers out there as well. It's finding what's a good fit for you and deciding whether or not you need help, because I'm not going to be the person that says to you, you can't pass with just the textbook. Actually, that would be a lie. People can pass with the textbook. It's just really fucking hard. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in here that have spent a few hours with that textbook and can also vouch for the fact that it's really fucking hard. And that's why there are providers out there like myself that do what we do, whether it's online training, like live training sessions, or whether it's pre-recorded stuff, self-paced e-learning stuff. Now, the big question is, do you sit your exam from home or do you sit your exam in a test center? And again, this is kind of one of those that I can't give you the definite answer, but what I can say is whilst a test center might feel like the go-to option because you can sit it without wearing any pants and you don't have to leave the house and you don't have to worry about traffic, you don't have to worry about the dogs, at-home exams bring their own kind of levels of stress. Has anybody in this chat sat an at-home exam before? With specifically the CeMAP exam? Fab. So that stunned silence tells me that so far, nobody's done it. If you are considering sitting your exam from home, there are some things that I need you to be aware of, because every single one of my students that I do not flag these issues with, and LIBF will also not flag these issues with you either, they get kicked out of their exam halfway through if you're sitting it from home. So the way that it works when you sit it from home, you can sit at any time of day, whether it's 3 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, it doesn't matter. They generally have 24-hour availability, but there are certain things that they don't tell you about. So when you book your exam, they will say, can you run a systems test? And it's like a little downloadable attachment onto your laptop. It'll run something in the background and it'll either say, yeah, you're good to go, or no, we don't like that you've got this add-on or this particular file. Can you remove it? Come back to us. The system tests are generally fine, but things that will kick you out of your exam mid-exam but are not flagged on your systems tests are things like Teams, if anybody's got Teams on their laptop. Slack is another one. If anybody is old enough to remember MSN, that's another one that will kick you out of your exam. If you are working off a works laptop and you plan on sitting your exam on a works laptop, don't do it. And that's because if you've got a works laptop, they've probably got some software in there that allows them to remote access your computer or your laptop. You've probably done that thing where you've rang IT and gone, Derek, I don't know what's happening. And they've gone, okay, let me log in and see what you're doing. And they turn it on and off again and it's fixed. But that software that allows them to log into your laptop when they are not at your house, that will chuck you out of your CeMAP exam. So what will happen is you'll run your systems test and it'll go, you're good to go, log in, congratulations, good luck. You'll get about 20 to 30 minutes into your exam. One of those systems will do an automatic update in the background and you'll just get chucked out of your exam. And you'll then have to go back through the systems test. You'll have to wait in line for what's called an online invigilator, which I'll come on to in a second. They'll then have to decide whether or not to allow you back into your exam because you've had it interrupted and it is exam conditions. So anything that will come on a works laptop is not okay. Please, guys, do not sit it on a works computer because 9 times out of 10, there will be something on there that will interrupt it. Any type of instant messaging software, WhatsApp, weirdly, I found is fine, but Teams, Slack, MSN, all those kind of instant messaging softwares, they tend to interrupt it. And also very often your firewall settings can also intermittently chuck you out because what they do is they check for viruses every like 15 minutes to half an hour, and they'll check for a virus and your exam software will go, there's something running in the background, we're going to kick you out. So what a lot of people do tend to do is disable their firewall for the period of the exam. That one isn't as common, but it can still happen. A couple of other really simple things that you can do if you are sitting your exam from home. First of all, they're going to ask you to video your desk space. So you have to make sure your desk is clear. You have to make sure there's nothing under your desk, to the sides of your desk. They will check. I've had students who've been questioned about bookcases behind them before, like mine. So ideally, in as blank a room as you can get it, because they are really, really strict with those requirements. You can't have things like water bottles on your desk. You can't have a pencil case. You can't have a pen and paper. All that stuff does need to be clear. And just please make sure that you have run that systems check. Because what you don't want to do is get to exam day, be nervous about your exam already, and then not be able to sit it. I've had a lot of students that have been so stressed with the login process of their exam, they've ended up in tears before they've sat their exam. So whilst I'm not telling you to not sit it from home, because I think a home exam, it would certainly be the best option for me, what I am saying is please be prepared. There is an entire podcast episode dedicated to specifically sitting your exam from home and how you can mitigate all of those external factors to not have any issues on the day. It is the latest podcast episode that's available, so you can either find it at futureinfinance.co.uk, or if you subscribed on Spotify or Apple Music, it will come up there as well as the latest episode. For anybody sitting specifically their CeMAP 1 exam from home, I would recommend you listen to that as well, because it was Maria that sat her exam and talked about her experience, and she gives us some pretty good pointers as to what came up in her exam. So there's loads of value in there. So definitely check that out if you're like getting ready to sit your exam. So that's how to prep for the remote exam. Whether you do it remote or in a test center, there are certain things that you are going to need. ID is the big one. And guys, if it's an ID with your address on, it has to be the same address as the address you originally registered your LIBF account to. So, for example, I get students who are currently living abroad, but they registered their LIBF account 2 years ago at their UK address. They now can't get a proof of address. A passport is the answer with that one because you don't have an address on your passport. But if you don't have a passport and you are looking to use a driver's license or any other suitable type of ID, your address has to match your LIBF account address. Otherwise, they will not let you sit the exam. It also needs to be in date. So you can't use things like an out of date passport or an out of date driver's license. So that's another thing to think about. Caroline, is only one type needed? Yeah, as long as you've got a passport or driver's license, they won't ask you for anything else. So you'll be absolutely fine with those. So with your CeMAP 1 exam, I think a good question would probably be, how long will it take? And the answer is, unless you have any additional requirements, you get 2 hours. And the way that your exam is going to work is you're going to log in and you are going to get 2 lots of 50 questions. And your questions are going to be multiple choice. So guys, for all 3 of your CeMAP exams, they are multiple choice questions. People talk on and on about how CeMAP 3 is case study based. That doesn't mean you're writing a case study. It just means they give you a case study and then they're going to ask you multiple choice questions around it. So all 3 are multiple choice. You are going to be presented with a question and you are going to have 4 options for those questions. One of them will be the right answer. Your exam is split into 2. So you've got Unit 1 and you've got Unit 2. There's 50 questions in Unit 1. There's 50 questions in Unit 2. To be able to pass CeMAP 1, you need to pass both units. So that means you have to get 35 questions out of 50 right in Unit 1 and 35 questions out of 50 right in Unit 2. If you come across an instance where you get it right in Unit 1, but you don't get 35 in Unit 2, you only have to resit the 50 questions that you failed on. But unfortunately, you do have to pay the full resit fee, which is 180 quid last time I checked. So your CeMAP 1 exam is Units 1 and Unit 2. That means when you sit your CeMAP 2 exam, you sit Units 3, 4, 5, and 6, because that's the same, it's just broken down into 4 units instead of 2. So guys, you get an hour for each unit. And as I mentioned, you get the 50 questions. A massive tip that I'm going to give to you for that is please make sure you sit in your exam for the allocated time you are given. If you get through 50 questions in 17 minutes, you've probably not fully read the questions. Or there's a potential that you didn't quite read the wording correct and you probably would have read it right the second time round. So the biggest tip number 1 that I can give to people is please make sure you use the full hour. Do not get through it in 6 minutes. I'll be miffed if you get through it in 6 minutes. You also have something really handy called a flag feature. So you'll be presented with a question and it will say, if you don't like this question, you can flag it, and it's a little red flag in the top corner. If only Tinder had the same little red flag button. It doesn't, but it's really beneficial to you because if you get presented with a question and you're just not sure on the answer, you might be stressed about time in the background. Flag the question, move on. What you don't want to do is you don't want to not answer all 50 questions because not having put any answer in, you're definitely not going to get the marks. At least if you put an option in, you've got a 25% chance of guessing the right answer. So the most methodical way of going through it is read your question, take a really big breath, like reread your question to make sure you didn't misread it the first time, and then pick an answer. If you're pretty confident with your answer, leave it, don't flag it. But if you think, oh, I'm not sure, hit that little red flag button, and once you've answered all 50 questions, go back through your flagged questions. You will not believe how many questions you just misread on the first occasion. And you'll get to it in your line of flagged questions, and you'll be like, oh, of course that's the answer. And that's because what happens is when you present your brain with a question or with a conundrum, it starts thinking about it, even if you move on to a different task. It's the same way as when if you throw a cup of coffee out of your car window at someone in traffic in the morning, you're probably still kind of thinking about it by the time you clock off work because you're like, was that a poor decision? Yeah, it was, because your brain's been working through that activity all day. The same works with your CeMAP exam. If you read a question, you're not sure and you move on, your brain is still working on that activity. So you're giving yourself a better chance of getting the right answer the second time around. I've just had a question come through that says, is there any break between the two units? And if so, how much? Not really. Once you've finished your 50 questions, they'll say, are you ready to end this unit? And you'll say yes. At that point, it basically just says, are you ready to start the next one? So you can't step away from your desk because you're still being recorded at that point and you've still got an invigilator watching you. And I also don't think you can linger too long between those two stages. So it's pretty much you finished one, you go straight into the other. When it comes to timings, if there is anybody that has any additional requirements, like you're dyslexic, you're dyspraxic, anything like that, you may be entitled to extra time. But the way that you would find that out is to contact LIBF direct. Also, generally speaking, with CeMAP 1, you kind of don't need extra time. You find that actually an hour for 50 questions is more than enough. You will be bored out of your box by the time that hour ticks over. And somebody else has just asked, is there always one correct answer? And that's a really good question because the answer is yes, but sometimes it just doesn't feel like it. So the way that they get around, or they trick you, and that's probably the wrong phrasing, but it can sometimes feel like a trick, is they will present, sorry, excuse me. They'll present you with a question and then they will give you two really similar answers. And you know that it's one of the two, but you just can't figure out which wording they're looking for. So there is only ever one correct answer, but sometimes it can feel like two of them kind of should be correct. Fiona, you've just asked extra time, is that at a test centre only? I think you can get it at home, but I've had students report back different things from this. So what I'd recommend you do is speak to Pearson VUE if you've already got your exam booked. They are the invigilating body. Ask what their rules are on remote exams and extra time. Because most students that I've had that needed extra time have ended up in a test centre. So it's always worth asking if you think you're entitled to some. I'm gonna break from this, what I'm talking about right now, because I think, Attila, the question that you asked is a really good one. And I'm gonna show you a couple of example exam questions just to show you quite how kind of close they can be. That potentially might not be the best phrasing to use, but just to show you how similar some of the answers can be on a couple of the occasions. So if you guys follow me on any of the forms of social media, you'll probably know that I'm doing a big Black Friday thing this week. One of the products is 999 CeMAP exam questions, and it's going to be a downloadable PDF file. You can get 400 questions for CeMAP 1, 400 for CeMAP 2, and then 200 for CeMAP 3, all available as an instant download. If you've already got the e-learning platform, or if you are already looking at joining on a masterclass, you will get those included in the package. So you will not need anything like this. But if you've never seen exam style questions or mock papers before, this is going to be the key between you passing your exam and not. And that's purely because 50% of your battle is understanding what's in the textbook. But the other 50% of the battle is figuring out exactly how you implement that in an exam environment. And it's because the exam questions are so fucking difficult. So just to give you an example, I've literally jumped into this 999 CeMAP questions document and gone to the first page. But you'll see how the way that they word them doesn't feel like plain English, and that's why it makes it so difficult. And actually, I'm going to ask all of you guys to get involved, just in case anybody's fallen asleep. I'm going to go through these 3 questions that you can see. I would like you to put your answers in the chat for what you think the answer is, please. So for question number 1, money must possess certain characteristics to be used as a medium of exchange. Which of the following is not one of those characteristics? A, B, divisibility, C, durability, or D, general acceptance? I'll give you guys 30 seconds. Full mixed bag of answers in the answers, guys. Everybody's going with something slightly different. Fab, but we've got one that is the clear winner. So with this question, a lot of people might be looking at this. I'm really sorry, I can never figure out how to get the writings off, so my apologies. But you might be looking at this question and going, Charlotte, what are they even asking? And that would be super valid. But if you look in the first chapter of your CeMAP 1 textbook, pretty much the opening lines talk about how we have money because it's what's called a medium of exchange. So we swap it for goods and services. And then it talks about the reasons that we have money. And it says money must be portable. We must be able to carry it around, whether it's on a credit card or cash in our pockets. It has to be divisible into small units. So you have to be able to get change for your 20 quid note. And it has to be generally accepted to all parties in all transactions. I appreciate not everywhere takes cash. Some places are cash only, but somebody will take your money in some form. So that means that A, B, and D are all wrong answers because they are all reasons that we have the medium of exchange. That means that C, durability, is the right answer in this scenario because the textbook doesn't talk about money being durable. We now have the Australian banknotes that you can put in the washing machine. That's not always been the case, but that actually doesn't matter. So C is the right answer. So super well done if you got that one right. Let's move on to the second question. Why do we need financial intermediaries in the financial services industry? A, to eliminate the risk of losing money. B, to directly provide funds to consumers. C, to channel money from those with surplus to those who need it. Or D, to guarantee fixed interest rates for all customers. I'm going to give you guys 10 more seconds on this one. Fab. So again, some of you who are very early on in your CeMAP studies might be looking at this question and going, Charlotte, what the fuck? And that's absolutely fine. The first chapter of your textbook talks about the fact that a financial intermediary is basically just a posh word for something like a bank or a building society. And it is their job to take money from those who have too much money, like other banks and other lending facilities, and then give it to those who don't have enough and who are generally willing to pay for the privilege in the form of an interest rate. So they take money from the surplus party, they then lend it to a deficit party. The right answer in this instance, again, is C. Can everybody see how this is kind of tricky? Like the words just throw people off. You guys who've got cameras on, I'm looking for some nods. Just give me a bit of hope. Yeah, okay, fabulous. And we'll give this last question a go before I move on to the next bit. But the last question, or question number 3, is which of the following is not a key function of the Bank of England? A, banker to the government. B, the issuer of banknotes. C, the supervisor of all investment firms. Or D, the lender of last resort. Oh, no, no one's getting this question wrong. Everybody knows this one. Tells me that you've all done the first chapter of your CeMAP textbook before you get well bored and look for something like this. Well done, guys. The right answer, again, actually, 3 for 3, is C with this one. So I'm hoping that's given you a little bit of an idea of why the questions can be confusing for a lot of people. The other thing to mention is there are a couple of different places that you can get exam style questions. So LIBF do also offer exam style questions, and you can buy them directly from their website as well. The questions that I sell are similar but not the same, in a sense of I've looked at the textbooks, I've looked at thousands of exam questions, and I've tried to build a bank for you guys that says this is enough to get you in the mood to sit your exam. That's the idea with that. That's on sale on Thursday if anybody's interested in it. But just to loop back to the original trail of thought, the next thing I wanted to talk about is how long do you need to study for your CeMAP 1 exam? And that is kind of like saying, how long is a piece of string? There's no hard and fast rule for that. You can do something like a fast track course where you do it in a week and you sit with me for 5 miserable days, and by the 7th day, you're ready to sit your exam and hopefully be in a fairly good position to pass. If you use just the textbook, the LIBF's recommended timescale is 6 months per exam. So they recommend you study for 6 months for CeMAP 1, what a hellish 6 months that would be, and then 6 months for CeMAP 2. You will not need another 6 months for CeMAP 3, and that's just because what you get faced with in CeMAP 2 is the same as CeMAP 3. The material is the same. There is no third textbook. Are those same? Morali, yes, they are the same questions that are available in the e-learning platform. So if you already have it, don't buy the 999 questions, because if you've not already got all of them, they are being uploaded into there as we speak. So you'll have access to all those as part of the package. And George, yeah, I know the answers are all C. I don't know why the first 3 were C. That's just poor planning on my part. It's because it's C for Charlotte. That's why. The trick is they're all C. If you answer C for all of them, then you'll be fine. But the recommended timescale for study, guys, is 6 months if you are just using the textbook. You can drastically reduce that if you get some sort of supporting stuff. So I bang on about my e-learning platform because I think it's the best one that's out there, but that is just my opinion. There are other sources that you can go to, but the idea is if you have something more engaging than the textbook that can teach it in a different way that isn't going to let you fall asleep in it, you will be able to get through the material a lot quicker. So a lot of people who buy my e-learning platform say, Charlotte, realistically, how quickly can I sit my exam? And the honest answer is, if you sat for a week and did 8 hours a day, 8 or 9 hours a day for 7 days, you'd probably still be ready to sit your exam after 7 days. But you'd also be so fucking sick of me by that point that you'd never want to do the rest of your CeMAP exams. So I recommend for people, if you are using something like an e-learning platform, 12 weeks is realistic if you also want to have a life and eat and hydrate and maybe see your friends and family, like for a little bit. That's a really, really good timescale, but you can whittle that down to as little as a week if you wanted to. But for somebody using the e-learning platform, I personally wouldn't recommend that option, because honestly, I would be bored out of my tree by day 3. And I think once you get to a point where you're just bored of it, you don't want to do any more and you don't retain the information as well. But if any of you guys either have the e-learning platform or you're interested in buying it after this and you want guidance as to how to break down your studies, please send me a message. I cannot stress this enough when I say I'm genuinely there to help every single one of, not even my customers. Some people message me and they never buy a single thing, and I'll still give them a little bit of guidance. But if you are interested in a product and you want to know how to best utilize the time that you have, send me a message and I can break your study time down for you per day to tell you what you'll need to put in to get CMAP qualified within that time scale. Leonie, can you sit your exam before Christmas? Do you know what? You definitely can. And I'm going to say that because I'm running a masterclass next week for CMAP 1. So if you wanted to sit it next Saturday, you could absolutely do that because there's space on my masterclass. But if you're using something like an e-learning platform, yes, you could sit it before Christmas, but you would need to put a fair shuffle into it to be able to get it done. But if you can give me a week, you can get it done, whether that's with an e-learning platform or with a masterclass. It is possible. It's just really hard. And I'm not going to say to anybody, oh yeah, an e-learning platform or the masterclass is the easy option, because it's not. At some point, you're all going to lose the will to live with CMAP. It's just, do you do it with a textbook or do you do it with a provider? That's the big question. The next thing I'm going to talk about is how to fight pre-exam nerves. Because, oh, another question has just come through. I've been using the e-learning. Oh, it wasn't a question, but it is a shameless plug for the e-learning platform. Liz, thank you so much. Drop me a WhatsApp message afterwards and I'll transfer you some cash. I'm kidding. The next thing I did want to talk about, guys, was fighting pre-exam nerves, because I am gonna take a stab in the dark guess and say most of you probably haven't sat an exam in a while. Before I did CMAP, the last exam I'd done was like A levels, which was a long time ago. So for you guys who are in that same position, exam nerves honestly can be a killer for your results. And there's loads of different things that you can do to mitigate those exam nerves. I am going to come on to the shameless plug of an anxiety exam course in a minute, but I'm kind of going to give you the key points now, which is do your preparation. So many people pay for the exam, they book their exam for 12 weeks' time, and then they kind of forget to study in that middle bit, but they go, well, my exam is booked, so I might as well fucking sit it. Yeah, but you're probably also going to fail if you haven't studied for it. There is no shame in adjusting your exam date. You can do that up to 24 hours before your exam. So if it is that you've done the thing of, I'm going to book it in and then I'm motivated and your plan doesn't work, just reschedule it. There is no shame in that. Nobody else is going to know and nobody is judging you for it. The other thing I would say is account for every eventuality. So if you are going to a test center to sit your exam, for the love of Christ, know where you are going to park. Please know where the test centre is. Please remember your ID and do not turn up late, because unfortunately, I still have a good batch of students that miss their exam because they turn up late because they were too busy in Costa beforehand. Don't be one of those guys. That's the best way to throw £223 right down the tubes. Don't be that person. Get there early. Log into your software early if you're doing it from home. Do all your systems checks and know that you have disabled your firewall. You're not doing it off a works laptop. You've uninstalled Teams. Go through that check-in process. I'm going to drop a link in the chat box now, which is all the stuff that you need to do to prep before an exam, and also how to book your exam if you're not sure on how to do that and where to sit it. And that's basically loads of useful material, which I forgot to drop in as I was going along. It is all available on the website, so you can find it all there. But if anybody's particularly interested in those bits, there's like a definitive guide as to how to do all of those things in the chat right now. Other things that you can do to fight your exam nerves. If you were one of those people in school that really freaked out over exams, Fiona, should I remove Zoom? No, nobody's ever flagged Zoom as being a problem. As long as you've got it disabled, as in not open at the time, you'll be absolutely fine. Things, oh, sorry, I've just had another question come through. Is it free to reschedule? Yeah, it is unlimited rescheduling. Your only restriction is the 12 months. So you have to sit your exam within 12 months of paying for it. but you could reschedule it for 364 days if you needed to over that 12-month period, and that would be absolutely fine. You just have to do it 24 hours before your exam. So Leah, I'm just reading yours now. I changed my CMAP 3 times. Yeah, so people do it all the time. Liz, how long do the results take to come through? That's another really good question, and it depends is the best answer that I can give you. First of all, if you sit it in a test centre, you will not be given your exam results in the test centre. They'll tell you to go home and check on the website. So it's no quicker to do it that way, but I found that there can be varying timescales to get your results. Generally, 3 to 4 hours after sitting your exam is pretty accurate. At a weekend, it can sometimes be longer. There have been weekends where it's been like 24 hours before people have got their results, but that's been very rare circumstances. Most people, within 3 to 4 hours of sitting their exam, they'll have them. The way that it works is you'll get an email, and that email will say, hey, your results are ready. And then you'll furiously click the link, and your results actually won't be ready. And it's usually about another hour after you get that email when your results are there. But you need to check in the LIBF platform, not the Pearson VUE platform, because people never know where to go. So go onto the LIBF platform. That's where you can find your results. Somebody just asked, is it a good idea to book the exam so you have a goal date? And if not ready, change. Yes, that's what I would do, but some people get overwhelmed really easily, and they find if they book their exam now, the pressure is just too much. They bury their head in the sand, they never do anything. So it's kind of dependent on what works best for you. There's no right way to do it. Guys, I find sometimes the word anxiety is thrown around a lot these days, and sometimes it's kind of not where it's used in a way where it shouldn't be. There are certain people whose exam anxiety is so bad, it will affect your results on exam day. There are a lot of things that you can do to mitigate that. And if you're watching this video and you're going, actually, I always struggled with exams as a kid, the thought of an exam makes my hands sweat and my mouth sweat, and I just don't feel good about it. And I feel like I need to have a drink. I do have a course that actually isn't out yet. It comes out tomorrow that I've had built by an exam anxiety expert. So she's come in, she's done some work with me on specifically on CeMAP, and she's built a course for those people who have crippling exam anxiety. And if that's you, again, I can't recommend that enough. You can find it on the website. Fiona, I know you messaged me about it. There is so much value in that course, because I have students who will sit a masterclass with me for 5 days. They'll be ready. They'll know they're ready. I know they're ready. They get into their exam and they go blank and they don't answer a single question for 2 hours. And it does happen to some people. Hopefully it won't happen to anybody that's in this group. But if you do struggle with nerves, this course, it's 67 quid and there's hours of material in there. That's how I got through my CeMAP exams, because I always struggled with exam anxiety. I contacted this person to help because I couldn't do it after failing like 7 times. So there is loads of value there for anybody that struggles. Leonie, I saw your face be like, oh my God, I can't believe you failed CeMAP 7 times and now you're here teaching other people how to do it. I know. So guys, I've spoken about how it's split into 2 units. It's an hour per unit. You need 35 per unit to be able to pass. The last thing I want to talk to you about is what's definitely likely to come up in your CeMAP exam. And this is like the money shot, which is probably not an appropriate phrase to use with CeMAP training, but I'm going to go through an indicative list just after I've mentioned Annette's comment. So do we need to do the full CeMAP 1, 2, and 3 within 12 months? No. You could do CeMAP 1 in 2020 and then not touch 3 and 4 till 2024, and that would still be absolutely fine. And I've actually had students that have done that in the past. Each time you pay for an exam, that is when your 12 months starts. So what I would not recommend anybody does is pay for all 3 of their exams at once. It can be really tempting to pay for all 3 exams because it's like £666. You go in there, you pay for them all, and you go, great, at least now I've paid for them all. But you've also just put a time restriction on all 3 of your exams. Do it an exam at a time. Go in, pay for it, get your textbook, and then book your exam. Don't do all three at once. My masterclass doesn't come with the LIBF textbook. My material is actually designed as a complete replacement to the textbook. So for the guys who are in here, I'm kind of hoping you're now going to vouch for me in the chat. But the idea is, if you hate that textbook, you don't need to look at it. You can use something as an alternative. That being said, there's a lot of important regulatory things in the textbook. So I do also say to people, look, I would recommend you read it, even if you just read it like for an hour with a glass of wine before bed. At least read it because it is really, really important. But most people get a chapter in and they go, no, I can't do it. I need something else. And everything that I do is designed as a replacement to it. So, stuff that's going to come up in your CeMAP 1 exam, the big stuff. This is the point at which you pick up your pen and paper and go, I can't believe you left us 45 minutes waiting for this stuff. I mentioned before, it's broken down into 2 units. So you've got your first half and you've got your second half. In your first half, it is based on chapters 1 to 16 of your textbook. Types of things that most commonly come up in those first 50 questions are going to be things like guilt, and I can feel the eye roll from the crowd. I don't write the questions, so I apologize. But guilt is a really, really big one, as is life insurance. And again, that tends to be people's least favorite thing. Topic 8 is based on something called collective investments. It's really not sexy. It's really hard. You are probably going to get a few questions on that as well. But actually, a bulk of your questions are going to be on things like inflation targets. They're going to be asking you things like, what's the difference between deflation and disinflation? Nobody knows. They're going to talk to you about the economic cycle. They're going to talk to you quite a lot about things like power of attorney. Tax statuses. So what will you pay capital gains tax on? And then it will give you a list. Corporation tax, when and how it's paid. Pensions. The good news is, for about 60% of the stuff that I've already mentioned, you can access the training that I've done on that stuff for free. So if any of you haven't had a look at the e-learning platform, this is not a plug to buy it. You can check out 12 hours worth of it for free. And in that 12-hour free segment is the guilt training, the endowments training, the pensions training, the life insurance training. You can get it all there. I am going to quickly put that link in the chat for anybody that doesn't have it, because you really are missing out. And then if you decide you want to go ahead and buy it, you can do, but there's no, you don't have to put in your bank details or anything. That link that I've just dropped in the chat now, you can access over 12 hours worth of free training material, I think including about 100 exam style questions as well, if you want to have a practice at those. So definitely check that out, but it's got all the guilt training, all the endowments training, the pensions training, all of that is included in there, as well as I think the first 4 chapters of the textbook. So check that out if you haven't already. That's unit 1. So that's your first 50 questions and what you're going to get asked stuff about. Then you move on to unit 2. And most people would say that unit 2 is harder. And that's because it's regulation, and nobody finds regulation sexy. But actually, there's quite a few things that you can box off to understand and pick up mega marks. One of them is the prison sentences and fines for particular crimes. Guys, you can potentially get 5 to 7 questions on that one bit. And if you want a really good spoiler, I'd done a TikTok video that covers all of the prison sentences and fines in one place in under 2 minutes. And if that's 7 marks in an exam that you need 35 to pass, that's a pretty fucking good leg up. So definitely go and find that. It's on my Instagram as well. The senior managers regime is another one that you can get up to 7 questions on. And I believe you find that in around topic 17 and 18 of your textbook if you're working from the textbook. But there's something in the textbook and they call it the senior manager and certification regime. And that's the phrase that they use. It makes you fall asleep. What they don't tell you is that the senior manager regime is one thing, the certification regime is another thing for another group of people, but they bulk it together when they word it, and people always get confused over it. But actually, if you're going to get 7 questions on the senior manager regime and 3 questions on the certification regime, that's 10 questions, which is a lot. That's like 20% of your overall exam based in one particular chapter. So please make sure you've done prison sentences. Please make sure you've done the senior managers regime. Other things are going to be topic 19 is called something to do with solvency ratio. Topic 19 of your textbook, quite important. There are particular things that you are likely to get asked about in topic 19. Somebody's going to tell me what it is. Oh, there we go. 10 points to Caroline. Prudential regulation. So in that chapter, people get lost quite quickly because they don't know what the word prudential means, and it just means money. So when you say prudential regulation, it just means money regulation. So what it's talking about is the fact that there is regulation for businesses and how they handle their money. That's the big hack for it. But there's one particular bit of chapter 19, and it's called the solvency ratio, which is specific to insurance companies. I might have lost some of you who have not done any CeMAP studies whatsoever, but for you guys who are well into it, I really want to give you this bit. They're going to ask you about your solvency pillars. They're going to ask you about a solvency ratio as a percentage, which I think is 0.15%, but definitely check that in your studies. They're quite heavily weighted towards those. It might be that you get 3 questions on that, which again is going to be 10% of your pass grade if you get it. So it's really key for you to pick up those points. For anybody that is in the final throes of their studies, please do drop me a message whether you've used my stuff or not, because there's definitely a little bit of value that I can give to all of you. Anka, you asked what chapter is senior managers. I think it's chapter 17 and 18 that it's covered in there, and it crosses across the two. The last thing that I wanted to say to you guys before I set you all free on your evening is if you have sat your CeMAP exam and you haven't passed, or if you guys go to sit your CeMAP exam and you don't pass the first time round, first of all, don't get completely disheartened by it, because a lot of people don't pass. Well, most people don't pass on their first go. The second is you will get something called an analysis sheet, and it's effectively a bar chart, and it will tell you what topics you bagged points in and what topics you missed out marks on. Whether you have bought my products or not, if you've sat your CeMAP exam and you didn't pass and you do not understand your analysis sheet, you can always send me a picture in WhatsApp and I'll give you a little bit of guidance as to where in the textbook or where in the material that I've built you missed out those marks, to hopefully make sure you bag it on the second time round. There's no cost associated with that. It's literally, I just want to help people out because there's nobody else that seems to offer that kind of support. Nice, on it. Chapters 18, thank you so much. And guys, that's pretty much it from me. I am gonna open the floor to you and say, do you want to ask any questions, anything in particular? It doesn't have to be about CeMAP 1, it can be about 2 or 3, but I just want people to be able to come on and ask questions. So I have to pick up kid from school, so could it not be 9 to 5? 9 to 17. I'm completely lost, I'm really sorry. But guys, does anybody want to unmute themselves? Is anybody brave enough to ask a question? I'm just going to work through the questions that have come through. Have you got some Black Friday offers going on for the e-learning platform? Then change my mind for a masterclass. How does that work? That's a really great question. If anybody buys the e-learning platform and they go through it and they wish they'd bumped up to a masterclass, just message me. I'll give you a discount code that's just for you. You can just pay the difference. So anybody that's in that position, if you wish you'd have booked on a masterclass, you're not going to get financially detrimented. I'll just give you a discount code so you can just pay the difference between the e-learning and the masterclass if you do want to bump up. There's like a bump up or an upgrade option.
Charlotte,
Yes, hello.
sorry. I've booked my exam from home, but I have a personal laptop I'll be working on. But I have taken that into my office before. I had a problem and I got my IT guy at work. He did remotely tap in.
Kirsty, I remember.
Yeah.
That issue that you had, I've never seen before in like
No,
the
I'm not
2 years
talking about
doing it.
that.
So,
I'm
but
not
I'm
talking
wondering
about
if
that
is
one.
that going to affect your LIBS login?
No, he didn't tap in then. He advised me on the phone what to do. It was
Mm-hmm.
something to do with, I can't remember what the issue was. I took my laptop into work, my personal laptop, and they did come on. Like,
Oh,
over
they
to my
remote
laptop.
access. That's fine. So if did they send you like a web address?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine because that's like a one-time access. I've done that before on my laptop and I've had people sit their exams on my laptop and it's been fine. So that shouldn't impact it.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you.
No problem. Caroline, revision tips, timings, how to pace yourself. Yes, that's a really good question. Um, the one thing I'll say to you guys is you will know whether you are into watching short TV programs or long TV programs, and you'll be one of two. And that's because your brain will either work in one way or another. What I would like you to do is figure out how long your brain span operates by, if you've got the e-learning platform, watch a video and press pause when you start to go, oh my God, I can't make any more notes. For you, it might be that you can get 40 minutes in and you've fully been in it, you've been in the zone, you've made loads of notes. It might be that you get 19 minutes in. That's absolutely fine. But if you can find where your sweet spot is, you should not be doing more than that amount of study per session. So, what you could do, Caroline, is if let's say you want to get through your first exam in 12 weeks, every single topic, so for CeMAP 1, there's 25 chapters. In the e-learning platform, every topic is taught in 3 different ways. So what you technically could do is you could listen to the audio file for topic 1 on your commute to work. Then you could watch the video file for topic 1 on your lunch, and then read the ebook when you get in bed for that topic 1 as well. By the end of day 1, you have done that topic 3 times over. You shouldn't need to do it more than that. And you'll test that by going through the questions at the end of that topic. So for anybody who's not got the e-learning platform, there's questions that will basically test your knowledge on that topic.
Oh
If it
my
is that
God,
you
Charlotte, I'm so thick. You've made me feel so much better. I have been through the e-learning, the whole e-learning platform, 25 topics once, right? I've listened to three ways. I thought I then had to do it 3 times over. You feel so good.
I mean, if you want to do it 3 times over, at least you're
No,
definitely
I
going to know your
don't.
stuff, but you don't need to. What I would say is if you can dedicate one topic 3 times over
Wow.
per day, in 25 days, you will be pretty much ready to sit the exam. But the other
Yes.
important bit that I would say is don't just sit the material and not use those exam questions, because actually I would expect to be seeing you to get 80% when you sit those exam questions before you're ready to sit the exam. And I want to make it really clear, I do not care how intently you have watched those videos, you will not pass those exam papers the first time round. And that's because it's a complete brain fuck. It is meant to make you feel like the dumbest person on the planet.
How do
And
I talk?
it's sorry, Chris, say that again.
Oh, can you hear me? Sorry, I was it's the first time I've logged on. I didn't realise how this worked. It's the first, I'm new to this, new to all this video talking, so you can hear me. Sorry, I'll keep quiet. I'm listening. Brilliant. Carry on.
That's fine, Chris. Don't worry. Welcome. I'm
Thank you.
sorry that you've joined us so late because I'm literally going through people's questions,
I've-
but it's nice
I've
to
ju-
have you.
I've just seen the email. I can't believe it. To be honest with you, I've paid for Paul Archer's boot camp in fairness, which is terrible. I know he's your rival. I didn't know you existed, but it just seems a little bit old fashioned for me, that guy. And some of the stuff he's got are like 10, 15 years old. And I wish I'd have seen you first. So I've been looking at quite a lot of your stuff. It looks really good. So obviously I've got the email. It's just come up.
Well, I'm glad that you found us. Don't feel bad though. Most people come to me second. I'm like the seconds of everybody, and that's just because I don't generally put much money into advertising. Like people
Yeah.
find me accidentally.
Yeah.
So there's loads of free stuff that you can access. And Chris, actually, I might catch up with you at the end just to point you in the right direction for that, all that stuff that you
Yeah.
can utilize.
Okay.
But I just want to loop back in, Caroline, to your question. 50% of your studies is going to be getting through the material. You'll then move on to sit in those exam papers, and there's 100 questions at a time for a reason, and that's to beat the life out of you, to make you realize that actually it's the worst thing you're ever going to do, because that's what your CMAP exam will be. The first time you sit it, you can expect to get like 40%. And people do it and they go, oh my God, I am useless. It's not that, it's just designed to be hard. Because what I want to happen is for you to go into your exam and be like, actually, this was no harder than the stuff that Charlotte gave me. I can do this. And that's the confidence I want to be able to give to you. So once you've gone through the material, every topic 3 times, then you've done those exam papers and you know that you are getting consistently 80% plus, you're ready to sit the exam. Do not put it off any longer, because your brain is so full of information. It's really easy for people to be like, actually, I'll just give it another week. I'll just give it another day. Just get it sat at that point, because you are not going to be any more ready than at that point.
Well, I'm on topic 20. I've done topic 20 today. I've been ill this year. I've got a different job, and this just sort of took over. Sort of secondly, I'm on topic 20. I thought about rereading the book again. So read it once, then read it again, and then do the exam. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think you get anything from reading the textbook a second time round. I think if you go through the textbook once and make extensive notes, you're better off at that point just giving the exam a go.
Okay.
How can I join the Zoom lessons? So if somebody's asked that in the chat, if you mean these free training sessions, I do one a month. I link it everywhere. If you mean the masterclass, you can check out my availability on the website, and I'll give you the link to my next 6 months worth of masterclass availability. So if anybody is interested in jumping on and doing basically what's called an intensive course, you sit 5 days, Monday to Friday with me. On the Sunday, you sit the exam, you have a pretty good chance of passing. That's what the fast track course is. If anybody wants to check out the availability for that, I've linked it in the chat. If you guys have not seen my Black Friday deals, it's usually about £1,200 for both masterclasses, so CeMAP 1, 2, and 3. On Friday only, it'll be on sale for £899, and you can cash it in anytime in the next 12 months. So if anybody's interested in that, there's limited spaces for that. Also, if anybody bought the e-learning and wished that they'd done the masterclass, please just drop me a message. I definitely won't come back to you tonight, and that's because it'll be my bedtime when I log out of this, but I will reply to you guys tomorrow. I'm just going back to people's questions.
Sorry, can I just ask a very quick one? It's literally so quick, because sorry for people that are waiting for that, so I just need to go as well. You said earlier about like disabling a firewall. Like, is that a Google question? Because I've no idea how to do that. But is that my best? Not just Google.
No. Are you on my masterclass by any chance?
Yeah, we'll be on in February.
Fab. I thought I'd recognised your username. Don't worry about it, because I will walk you through it before the masterclass. So I'll show you how to disable your firewall in those sessions.
Okay. Okay. So I was just asking, because I may well have sat by 2 and 3 before I joined you, so that's why I was asking.
Well, yeah, no, don't worry. I'll catch up with you separately on the masterclass about that. And if you're not sure, I can show you how to do it then.
All right. No worries. Thank you.
No problem. Somebody's asked if they can join the masterclass 9 to 5. Yes. So the masterclass operates 9 till 4:30, Monday to Friday. You get an hour for lunch. We get loads of breaks as well. Equally, if anybody's in a position where they can't accommodate a particular day or certain hours because of childcare or whatever reason, you get the sessions recorded and you get to keep those until you CeMAP qualified. It's not like there's a 30-day time frame on them, which is what a lot of providers do. You get all the recordings for every single session. They're broken down into like hour chunks. So if you have to jump out for an hour, you know where to pick up from, and you get those till you CeMAP qualified. Hopefully it takes most people a week after the masterclass, but if it is that it takes you a little bit longer, you've still got access to those. Fiona, do you need to delete the app? Which app do you mean?
Just ignore me. I was answering somebody's question that you answered anyway.
Perfect. Sorry. No, thank you so much. Somebody's message to say, can they drop me a message to figure out which is the best route? Yes, absolutely. Anybody can drop me a message, guys. If anyone's got any questions, you can do it on the website, you can do it on Instagram, or you can just WhatsApp me. Like, my number is literally all over the internet, so do feel free to drop me a message. Somebody's asked about Black Friday offers. If you buy the e-learning and then change your mind for the masterclass. So with that in mind, if you buy the e-learning now and you want to upgrade to the masterclass, you basically have, if you want to take advantage of the masterclass price, you have to make that decision before Friday. If you decide in 3 months' time to upgrade, I won't be able to honor the Black Friday deals, but that's why the e-learning platform went on sale on Monday. So you had 4 days to figure out whether or not you wanted to upgrade. So if it is that you got the e-learning and you're right on the edge, you've still got a couple of days to figure it out. If you want to upgrade between now and Friday, drop me a message and I can sort you out your link. That's absolutely fine. How many hours a day would you say you need to revise for CeMAP 1? It depends on how quickly you want to get qualified, Leon, I guess is the best answer. So if you can put in an hour a day, that is enough to get qualified within 8 weeks. But that's if you are using a supplemented platform like the e-learning platform. So if you can put in an hour a day where 20 minutes of it is a commute, you can watch a video, you know, for half an hour on your lunch and then maybe half an hour before bed, an hour a day is enough time for 8-week timescale to get through your exams. And am I ever going to write a book about getting CeMAP qualified in future? Probably not. And that's only because I like to put free content out there. So I could write a book, but then I probably just put it on my website in the form of a blog anyway, because I think there's a lot of value that can be added. And I'm not a book person unless it's like smut, basically. Unless you can engage me in some way that isn't writing about CeMAP, I'm not going to read it. So I'm probably not going to do a book, but I will keep posting on my blog. Caroline, what are my thoughts on rewriting it all? Do you mean all the textbook, or do you mean all the material in the e-learning platform? I think making notes is important. For anybody that's got the e-learning platform, whether it's CeMAP 1, 2, or 3, I'm going through a massive rebrand process at the minute. So hopefully by the end of January, all of CeMAP 1 should be redone. And I've redone it in a way that basically goes, guys, for this slide, I need you to write everything down. And that's because I've got a pretty good indication that it's going to come up in your exam. So you're going to start seeing new videos go in as a replacement to the old ones. But it's never an extensive, like, it's never everything, because I don't know everything that's going to come up in your exam. And unless you work for LIBF, nobody does. But I do think making notes is really important. If you are wondering what to write down, actually my recommendation would be go onto my TikTok channel, because I phrase a lot of those TikTok videos around questions that people have told me they've had in their exam. I don't pitch them like that when I do the TikToks, but they are built around information that I know people are getting asked questions about. So for those, I would say go onto it, write it on a Post-it note, stick it on your fridge, or like the back of your toilet door, or above your kettle, wherever you spend the most time. Anthony, I'm up to topic 7. There's so much knowledge and stuff to remember. I'm petrified that even though I understand and review everything, I won't be able to remember all the details, any ideas. Yes, and the answer for that is exam style papers or exam questions or whatever you want to call it, because people always say to me, yeah, but Charlotte, I've just remembered what the right answer is. But exactly, you've remembered what the right answer is. So if it is that you can get your hands on exam style questions, wherever you get them from, just keep hammering them, because once you are consistently getting a good pass mark, you will not be more ready. There are going to be questions that when you get faced with your exam, you've got not a fucking clue what the right answer is. And that's fine, but what you want to do is leverage the chances of being an overall pass. Because people come to me all the time and they're like, Charlotte, I want to get 100%. And I kind of have to reset your expectations and be like, that's not going to happen unless you've got a photographic memory and you can memorize the entire textbook. Because sometimes your exam questions will ask you to remember the exact sentence in your textbook, and they will just change one word in that sentence and expect you to know which one's right. And that's really, really difficult. My job is to give you the law of averages and enough information to get you over the line with that 35 out of 50. If I've done that, I've done a good enough job. So if you want a distinction, that's cool, but I can't guarantee you that. And actually that brings me nicely onto the next question, which was, does it matter what percentage you pass with? No, so they won't even give it to you on your certificate. It'll just say you CeMAP qualified. It doesn't say how many times you sat your CeMAP exam. It doesn't say what your scores were in any of your exams. It doesn't matter if you got 100% in all 3 exams. No one is ever going to see that information ever again unless you post it on Facebook. And then everybody will just judge you for posting it on Facebook anyway. So it won't make a difference what scores you get. Masterclass, if you fail, can you attend the session again? Yes. So actually, I didn't talk about this. My biggest unique selling point for my master, I offer a 100% money back guarantee for anybody that sits the masterclass and within 7 days they go, actually, Charlotte, I think you did a pretty shit job. Now, touch wood, in 2 years of doing this, that's never happened. But what it does is it gives you the confidence to go, okay, I need to sit my exam within the next 7 days to make sure I don't need to ask Charlotte for a storming refund. And that's what I'll say to you guys on day 1 of the masterclass is get your exam booked in, because if you decide this was utter shite, you can ask me for a 100% refund. The only thing that you've lost in that instance is your time. But ultimately, when you sign on to the masterclass, it's my job to get you qualified. I have had a couple of instances where people have asked to redo the masterclass, and that's mainly been because they've sat a course, something's happened, whether it's they've gotten sick, they've had a bereavement, life has just gotten in the way, and they didn't end up sitting their exam. And they come back to me 3 months later and go, Charlotte, I've forgotten everything. Can I rebook on a course? No, you can just sit another course for free. And that is an extended offer until you qualified. Like my promise is, I will give you support until you are qualified. That's the whole point of what I do different.
What's the price?
Leon,
What's the price again for that? What's the price on that then?
The masterclass normal price per masterclass, it's £677 for CeMAP 1, and that's the 5 days, the e-learning, all the support, everything else, and then another 677 for CeMAP 2 and 3 combined. There is a Black Friday offer, so you can buy both of them on Friday for £899 and just cash them in for any day in the next 12 months.
And you stick by all of us until we pass, whatever the reason.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Come hell or high water.
Okay, cool. So we could try to pass it 10 times, and we could still, until we get there. Essentially, doesn't matter.
Yeah, basically, I've had students that have had a bunch of things happen. Some of them have been quite severely dyslexic. They have really, really struggled. And my promise is I will work with you either until you qualified or until you turn around and go, Charlotte, will you just fuck off? I don't want to hear from you anymore. So that's the idea.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No problem. Leonie, if you do the masterclass, do you have to oh, sorry. Somebody just shouted me.
I'm sorry, it's me. You know what the guy just asked you earlier? Let's say, the person, they're really struggling and, it takes them a little bit above a year, or they come back to you after a couple of months. And is that still okay, or?
It is, but what I say to people is I want you to be fully committed. So, you know, I've had students in the past who've turned up for 3 of the 5 days and they've not had their cameras on and they've not really engaged in the conversation. And then they disappear off the radar after a masterclass, and then 6 months down the line come back and go, I'm ready to sit my exam now. Have you got me any tips? That's not what I expect. So I expect people to turn up, to attend, to have their cameras on, to engage. If it is for whatever reason, genuinely life gets in the way and not you just can't be asked right now, then absolutely yes. Even for the people that have come back to me and gone, okay, I put my foot in it, I screwed up, can I do it again? I do say to them, look, jump on another masterclass, because you're never going to remember all that information. Let's just start afresh. But at some point, I'm sure I'll have somebody where I have to go, look, you've just been a dick. Like, because ultimately it is my time, but that has never happened. But I just expect for you guys to put in the same as what I'm putting into you guys when you book on. That's all that I ask from people. Does that answer your question without being too abrasive?
Yes, Charlotte. Yeah.
But Leonie, do you have to sit your exam on the Sunday? No. What I generally say is try and sit it within the next 7 days, because you will never be more ready than you are after that 7-day period. And that's because there's so much stuff to remember. You're at a risk of forgetting it. And also within the 7 days, you have the 100% money back guarantee, but you don't have to sit it on the Sunday. A lot of people prefer to sit it on like the Tuesday, Wednesday, because it gives them a weekend off plus 2 days to recap where they didn't feel confident. And then they jump into it on the Wednesday. So you don't have to sit it at any particular point. It's just, I've found generally my students that sit it on the Sunday or the Monday have the best chance of passing first time, which is what I aim for. Caroline, did I answer your question before? I think I can see your screen, so just give me a quick nod. Yeah, perfect. Chris, I missed the e-learning offer. Will it be available again? I'm probably going to bring everything back for Cyber Monday, because that's a big thing that people keep wanting to see. And a lot of people have messaged since to say they missed the e-learning offer on Monday. So anything that you guys have seen that's on offer this week, if you've missed any of them, I'll probably bring them all back on Monday, but it will be a 24-hour only deal if you've missed out. So just have a look on there. And I'll also send you a really annoying email to remind you about it as well. So there'll be no excuses to miss it. Perfect, Caroline, I'll keep my fingers crossed from you. And also, if you need any extra support, don't be afraid to send me a message if there's something that's just not sticking. Anchor, is there a merit or anything like that for CeMAP? Yes, when you sit your exams, you'll get results and it will have pass, merit or distinction, but it will not show on your certificate, because it will just say CeMAP qualified. That's it. At what point do you register to get FCA regulated? Well, Victoria, that is a whole question to unpack on its own. The answer is, unless you decide to set up your own business and work just for yourself and open a big mortgage brokerage up, you won't do it, because either you'll get an employed role with a mortgage broker, or you will work under a network and they will be the FCA regulated entity who will employ you on a self-employed basis, or you'll get an employed role with them. If it's just you as a one-man band, most people don't get FCA regulated on their own, because it's timely, it's expensive. It's a big insurance thing as well. So most people don't do it that way.
Can I ask you one more thing quickly?
Yes.
When you say, it's just on the certificate exam results that you have merit, distinction, and all that stuff, what exactly happens in the job hunt? Like, they ask you for the exam results, or
They'll ask you for your certificate to say that
Sorry?
you're CeMAP qualified, and they'll ask you for your certificate, but you don't get your certificate until you've done 1, 2, and 3. So some companies will take you with just CeMAP 1 under your belt, with the expectation that you're going to do CeMAP 2 and 3. In that instance, all you can do is screenshot your results from LIBF to show that you've got CeMAP 1, because you don't get a certificate for that on its own.
My question is, does it make a difference that, we have on the point score, or we have grade
Nope.
scores?
It will never show on your certificate. No one will ever see it other than you.
Okay.
And then probably last question, because it is swiftly approaching my bedtime, was you have to be CAS afterwards though. Yes, so CAS or CAS stands for I can never remember what it stands for. But basically, when you get your CAS status, it means that you are competent advisor status. There we go. Took me a second. Basically, once you have your competent advisor status, it means you can go anywhere and get a job as a mortgage advisor. So I don't want people to think that you get CeMAP qualified and you walk straight into an employed role as a mortgage advisor. That is not going to happen, because you have to get your CAS status, and you will do that by getting your training through a company like a network or a mortgage brokerage. So if you're working in admin under a mortgage broker, they will give you your CAS status, which basically says, we've seen this person do mortgage advice and they're sound and we'll vouch for them. But you have to get your CAS status before you would either move on to another role or look to get FCA authorized. But again, a lot of people just choose not to do that. But guys, I am gonna have to at this point say goodnight, because I need to go to bed. One last question: are there any other deals for the e-learning platforms? On Monday, yes, you will be able to get 20% off either the ultimate package or either e-learning platform. So if you didn't bag it last Monday, you will be able to get it this Monday coming up. But it will be for 24 hours only. And you'll find it all on the website. And guys, thank you so much for being here. As always, it's an absolute dream to have you. Thank you so much, because I get to do this for a living and I really appreciate it. I hope you found a lot of value in this. If anybody does have any questions that they want to follow up with, please don't be afraid to reach out to me. You can do it through the website. It is me that replies to those messages through the website. So if I reply to you at 2 a.m, it's me. It's not a robot. Please don't talk to me like I'm a robot. You can message me on WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, literally anywhere. And I'll give you as much support as I can. And super good luck with your CeMAP studies. All right.
Thank
I'm going to
you.
kick you all out.
Thank
you so much for this evening. Have a good one.
Sign out.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.